Guys, we are going live, so we're doing a little check real quick to make sure everything is working. I'm gonna try and plug our speaker in here, make sure everything's good. Not on. So can you see it? So audio is coming through. All right, you can take that off so you don't get any feedback, but audio is coming through on that. Okay. All right. Mallory Fry joined Wilkes.
Thank you, Dave.
So, all right. So we're live. Just with Wilkes, we wanted to do this, take a little bit of time, and maybe go in depth a little bit from the video that maybe hopefully some of you guys watched. If you haven't seen the video, the second chance is when you can go to our website, urbanpurpose.org. You can go there, you go urbanpurpose.org/chances. If you've seen it, Wilkes was in that video. If you haven't, head there afterwards and give it a look. I think you'll enjoy it. But because the video was, 8 minutes and several people talking, there's not like a your mom says she loves you.
Love you too, Mom.
So there wasn't much. We couldn't go in depth on a lot of things, and so we thought this would be a cool thing to do, just to go a little more in depth. You can ask questions. We'll try and get to them if anybody asks any questions. But just wanted to talk a little bit. We're in the Urban Purpose office. We don't have a great backdrop or anything like that. Beautiful. So it's just us here talking. And want to go in depth on things. So, Wilkes, I'm just going to ask you some questions, and you can kind of jump in. So, I think first of all, just give like a little just nutshell version of just how you're raised, how you grew up, kind of what was life like growing up.
I had your average, all-around American upbringing. Pretty tight-knit family. Parents stay together. Grandparents very involved, and I was raised in the church. I was very involved in the youth group coming up, and the worship team, the band. My dad coached my sports as I was growing up.
So pretty normal.
Pretty normal. I mean, I never wanted for anything. I pretty much had everything that I needed, and a lot of what I wanted. So. I never went without.
Cool. So, I think one of the things probably in the video that stood out to me the most, like lines that I can remember, was early on. You said I didn't just wake up one day and decide, hey, I want to be addicted to pills or addicted to heroin. And that's pretty much. I mean, that's the case for everybody, right? Like who just up and decides, like, hey, I want to be a drug addict today. Nobody does that, right? Like. But there's a lot of people out there that don't understand. So, and really in the video, we didn't have time to get into it. So you kind of mentioned, I smoked some weed, got the ball rolling, but there's more to it than that, obviously. So like what went into that? Like what took you from normal background to family that loved each other, was together, all that kind of stuff, like down that road? It's more than just smoking a little pot. So can you kind of expound on that?
It's different for everybody. And I know for me, and a lot of people are like me. It was just curiosity, really. The old saying goes, "Curiosity killed the cat." And, I had my first taste of it, and like in the video, I said, the first time that I smoked, I wanted to feel like that. It's an awesome feeling, at the point, and it kept my mind busy. Mm-hmm. I wasn't bored anymore, and as I got around more and more of the wrong people. New drugs were introduced, and I would try this, I would try that, and also the stint that I had in the hospital when I had pancreatitis. They were feeding me some really strong stuff, and that's where I kind of figured out, hey, this is what I really like, and once I left there, I was just kind of chasing that on and off, and once I did get around the wrong people, that spiral just got out of control.
Mm. So what took it from was the pancreatitis stint in the hospital, what took it from just like dabbling in some stuff to like ramping up? To harder, some more serious stuff?
After being in the hospital, I knew what that stuff made me feel like, and we could get technical with it. It was morphine and Dilaudid. It's not like your average, Loratab or anything like that. So it was definitely stronger, and knowing that there was more out there than just what I was finding on the streets at that time. I was always looking for that.
Yeah.
I smoked and drank, all throughout my addiction, and the pill use was on and off. Not because I would want to do it and then feel guilty and stop. It was just supply. It would run short, so I'd be out for a while. And like I said, I finally found the wrong people to get in with, and there was just a constant supply of this drug. And when that ran out, I was able to find something stronger, find a more constant supply. And I was in and out of jobs, but still able to have some type of income, whether it be getting it the right way or the wrong way. And I was able to keep my high going, and eventually it just turned into me depending on that drug, just to even function.
Yeah, so like, I think, for those of you that are watching, don't know Wilkes at all, I've known him for several years, pretty bright dude, like you're not a moron.
Thank you.
And so, I think most people that don't know like what you're dealing with or what addictions, like they can't get their head around it. And the obvious question is like, why not just stop? Like why try? Like you're bright, you're not a moron. Life is miserable this way because you weren't happy.
No,
right?
absolutely not. And I wish that I could have quit.
And so you knew like up here, right? Like stopping and all that kind of stuff would be the wise move. So for people that like can't get it, like that struggle with that, help them understand a little bit like what's going through your mind. Not to excuse it, but to like kind of, because I think it's important for people on the other side to to understand a little bit as best they can, for similar to like understanding what people are dealing with and how we can help, how we can walk with people through it, how we can sympathize with that. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. I will say this. I'll do my best to try to make those who have never been in my position or an addict's position to understand. It's very hard to, because if you've never been there, then it's just hard to get. It's not that we want to keep using. It's not all of that. I mean, there is that fear that you won't get high again, but dependency on a drug is so hard to explain to somebody because, and I really don't even know how to dumb it down. It's like if your body has something for so long, in my case it was heroin, and I was replacing my, I guess dopamine receptors. I don't know how all of it works. I'm not a scientist, but eventually your body quits producing the certain levels that your body naturally needs to feel normal, and it suppresses that because you're obviously flooding your body with that stuff on a daily basis. And once you take that stuff away, it's very mental, but it's also very physical. It's a physical hurt. It's a physical pain, and a lot of people will try to describe it to you as having the flu, the worst case of the flu you've ever had times 1,000. Like it's
when you're going without it.
Yeah, when you're going without it, and it's not just instantly, and with all the pain, it's a lot of mental too. You're basically stuck in your head, so you're sitting there going 90-0 in your brain, trying to figure out how you're going to get your next fix, and on top of that, depression begins to set in, and you're just going every which way, and it's a really dark place. I guess I'm trying to think of an analogy. Like,
so you think it's like, because I can understand it to an extent, like I think people can get the physical, right? Like you've taken the drug, and so then now you feel this just pain and aches and all that kind of stuff. I've never gone through it. I've been around people that have, and it seems like hell. And so, and I can get that, like, to an extent, like, okay, if I just take this drug, I'll feel all better. Like the temptation that's got to bring. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe even a little bit more like maybe emotionally, mentally, like, are you just trying to, like, feel normal? Yeah. You just trying to numb out your problems, both?
When it gets that bad, you're not even trying to numb out. You're just trying to feel normal, just to function. You know, like you and I now, you know, how normal people just go throughout the day. You know, they don't need anything. Maybe some ibuprofen, I don't know, whatever your deal is. But just to even get out of bed, just to even think normally, you're so dependent on this drug just to live a normal life. And the more and more you do, the further down you go. Mm-hmm. And you know, I kind of hit on the depression, and you know, you begin to tell yourself these things like, well, you know, I'm not good enough, or I'm always going to be stuck like this, and I wish I could stop. And it seems so easy to somebody else, mm-hmm. but you know, combined with the physical and emotional and mental pain, you know, it's hard to do it on your own. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to have somebody, you know.
And that's what I think I see the most. Like Jim and I really is, you see people, I mean, they're isolated. They've done this, and then it's just like they retreat more and more and more into isolation. Yeah. And so, yeah, the depression, the anxiety, all those things start kicking in, and they feel so out of whack, and
everything around you is falling apart. I mean, you know, for me, I couldn't hold a job. You know, I'd lose a job and I'd get more down on myself. So I would, you know, in turn try to go, you know, fix that with getting high. You know, I'd hurt my family, and knowing that they still love me, but you know, knowing that I did something to hurt them, or you know, hurt one of my friends, you know, I would just try to go hide and get high, and that's how I would escape from that. Mm. And like I said, it's just a spiral that just keeps going further and further down.
So one thing I wanted to talk about in that. So you're in that kind of, that's what's going on. Mm-hmm. You're addicted to heroin, pills, opiates in general. Things with your family's kind of going downhill. Mm-hmm. You know, and so this is a story, like, kind of brief story that I think is pretty neat about this whole thing, and kind of where you're at now. Wilkes and I grew up in the same hometown. I'm from Jackson, Tennessee. It's a pretty awesome place. You know, but I didn't know Wilkes, and so
I knew your brother,
and you knew my brother. I think I saw that he's watching right now. You know, there was some mutual connections. I didn't know him, and so a good friend of mine from college and then seminary, Justin Wayne Scott. Moved, you know, we were down here in Birmingham together at Beeson, and he moved back to Jackson and became pastor at First Baptist Jackson, which is where you grew up. And he wasn't pastor when you were there, but your parents were still there. Right. And so I remember him calling me one day. I remember Jim and I were at Starbucks meeting with somebody, and he calls me and is like, hey, there's this family, and he knows what we do, and there's a family in our church, and they got a son, and things are spiraling out of control, and and asking me some questions. And so I just think it's neat to kind of, that story of God's providence in moving you down here to Birmingham. And I mentioned a recovery program here in town, the Foundry, and I was like, well, there's the Foundry, and you know, I think your parents wanted to get you somewhere pretty quick.
Out of Tennessee, too.
And away, and so it was kind of like, he was like, let me talk to his parents, and I think basically the conversation went, yep, sounds good. Yep. And so, yeah, you moved down here. So tell us about that. Like, what was going on, like, when, I know that was from my end. It's just a phone call from Justin. Hey, we got this, you know, you come to the Foundry. This is the cost. You know, if he comes down here, we'll be happy to go out. Jim and I will make our way out there, visit him, let him know he's got some people here. You know, that sort of thing. So that's on our end. It's actually pretty normal kind of thing for us. But from your end, you're in Jackson. You've grown up in Jackson. What the heck's going through your head when Birmingham gets thrown out there?
Okay. I'll take it back just a little bit, just to kind of give some background on it. I had tried a rehab, you know, a couple months before, you know, coming down to Alabama. You know, I kind of cleaned up a little bit and was working 2 jobs, and then things, you know, I relapsed and I got back out there. but to get to that rehab, God placed a guy in my life that was very dear to me, and his name was Brent Jordan. And he was a big help to me. He was my AA sponsor when I was at home. And when things kind of got bad again, this is right around the time that I went to jail, and things got really bad with me and my parents. I was really messing up big time, and I just remember I was on 24/7 lockdown at my house, miserable, detoxing, feeling horrible. My mom's on the phone, trying to figure out any option she can just to get me out of Jackson, at whatever cost. And I remember laying on the couch, and Brent was over there, and I didn't really know a lot of what was going on. There was a lot of talk between him and my mom, and honestly at the time I didn't care. I felt so bad that it was all I could do just to focus on the hands in front of me. And I remember Brent coming into the living room that day. He just kind of sat down on the coffee table in front of the couch, and he's like, "Well, it's like I'm just going to need you to remember 2 words." And he said, "Roll Tide." And I just remember thinking, like, what does he mean by that? He's like, "You're going to Alabama." And that's when he kind of told me about a place called the Foundry. I don't think he knew a whole lot about it himself, but they knew that it was a year-long program, and that he had gotten in touch, or that
They're
my
probably
mom,
ready for you to be somewhere a year or two.
Yeah, but during that, I guess that's the time that my mom had been on the phone with Justin, and Justin had called you, and it's crazy how things worked out that God moved you here, 9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
I had no idea who I was. I had no idea who you were, and I knew your little brother, but I've always seen it as God put you down here for a reason. Maybe not just for me, but I know for me specifically, just because you guys had the tools that I needed to go along with being in the Foundry, and with my transition of getting out of the Foundry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool to me just to see how all those connections work. There's no real way to explain how all that's going to work out other than God's hand and all that. So you get to the Foundry, we drive out there, we meet you, we come visit every night, on Thursdays I think it was, see you. And then I remember I got a phone call on Monday, because this crap always happens on a Monday or something. First thing yeah, it's either Monday or Friday when the stuff hits the fan. And so it was, hey man, I just got kicked out. And I'm like, what the heck? And I don't know how long it had been, 3 months?
It had been about 4.5 months,
okay,
going on 5.
4.5 months. So we drive out there and tell, like, what's going, because you're just to put it just bluntly, you're lying, and telling us the story of no, I didn't do it, I didn't, all this kind of stuff. And so, yeah. So what's going through your mind there? Like, you've been clean for a stretch, you're kind of getting sobered up, you're seeing things a little clearer than you were.
Yeah.
So some people might say, hey man, you got 4 months under your belt, things must have been getting better. Like, what the heck happened? Like, what took you back down that road?
I know at that point that I wasn't ready. I was still trying to figure out a way just to manipulate the system, keep everybody happy, that way I could do my own thing. But when it really came down to it, when, I was told that I was being kicked out, I got really down on myself, and I knew, first off, I was not calling home. I knew that was out of the question. And you guys were the first ones to pop up in my mind. I remember what you guys had told me. I didn't know how far the second chances went, or how far you guys were willing to go with me at the time. But I definitely tested that out. But sitting in the conference room that you just mentioned, I'm sitting here thinking, man, this is what I always do. I always screw it up. I get something good going for me, and I always find a way to mess it up because I just want to do me, and I don't care who it hurts. As long as I'm happy, then forget everybody else.
Yeah. One thing I remember like distinctly, and it's interesting, was you were lying to us,
Yeah.
trying to sell us on some
Blooded.
yeah. I mean, just lying some story of why they're wrong for kicking you out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just funny. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like people in that situation, you see like kind of two tracks running in their brain, and it's the manipulative lying side, and it's the like thinking kind of clearly side. And it's like it's weird because they're running at the same time. Because I remember you just being like hell bent, like I'm not going back to Jackson, and maybe it's because you're scared of your mom or something.
Yeah.
But it was. I think there was some wisdom there. I don't need to go back to Jackson.
Yeah.
Like I know I'm in the middle of a mess right now, but I don't need to go back. So you're you're lying, you're manipulating, but you're also thinking clear. I don't need to go to Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the only thing Jim and I could really think of is like, he's got to spend the night somewhere tonight.
Yeah.
And so we decided on testing Jimmy Hale and seeing if you could get in there. So took you to Jimmy Hale.
Yeah.
And they let you in that night, which was
a blessing.
and I remember, I don't know if you remember this, I was starving before we went. And so I was like, we're going to get some lunch. And you were just tap dancing the whole time, nervous as a wreck. But I was like, I've got to eat.
Yeah.
So we went and got some food, and then went to Jimmy Hale, and it worked out. And so the idea is, but you were pretty set, you want to go back to the foundry. I think you realized
I didn't
foundry
go back.
was,
Yeah.
the foundry was the place you needed to be and what you'd screwed up. So the idea at the foundry is you had to wait 30 days before you could get back in.
Right.
So the idea is, kind of ride out 30 days. At Jimmy Hale, and we'll talk about getting back in the foundry. So I remember visiting you a couple times at Jimmy Hale, and wasn't your favorite place.
It's definitely it definitely wasn't the foundry.
So, but then I remember one day, it's a Sunday, I think you're on day 27.
3 days out.
3 days from getting able to go back to the foundry. And I remember my son had busted his eye open and we're heading to the emergency room. And so I'm swinging through a drive-thru to get something to eat. I think I literally had just gotten off the phone with your mom.
I think I remember you telling me
and
that.
I hang up, and then I get this random number, answer it, and it's Mark. I mean, it's Wilkes, and he said, Mark, get kicked out. And I'm on the street. Yeah, you're on a payphone. And we won't go into that conversation and what was said, but I remember being pissed off because I was like, how in the world? Like, what the, 3 days? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I was like, I know he's not an idiot, but I'm wondering right now. And so, and I can imagine, so you're from Jackson. Jackson's not the biggest place in the world. And so I don't think there's avenues and streets and running that way. And so you're like, where the heck am I? And we have a Sunday meal on Sunday, so it was, hey, you can come talk to me and Jim at our meal at the corner of 1st Avenue North and 12th Street. And, well, where is that? I don't know. And it was just like, streets run one way, avenues the other, figure it out. I was pretty frustrated.
Yeah.
But you made it there, and we won't go into all that necessarily, but you're still lying. So I remember in that parking lot still telling me some story. So what's going through your head there? I mean, so this is second go-round.
Really? Just trying to
Still lying. And so not really wanting to come clean, but wanting to get back in the foundry.
Yeah. I think the line part came in when I felt like if I actually came clean, that I wasn't going to have that second chance anymore. If I had really admitted to screwing up and taking ownership for me getting myself to that point, I felt like you guys would have given up on me. Obviously, you didn't, but that was going on in the back of my mind. Like, well, I did this to myself. What reason do they have to continue to help me?
That's cool, man. So trying to think. Then work through some things. End up, you got kicked out of there because you were still getting high.
Yep.
And we were able to work through some stuff and talk about that. And so had some guys that cared a lot about you, chipped in some money. It wasn't like a real big urban purpose. There was some individuals.
Very thankful.
Good group of guys came up with some cash because the foundry, get back in after that 30 days, you still had to do the entry fee. And so they came up with that. And so you went back, we worked through some things, and from there, man, it's like something happened, right? Like you really didn't
Well,
look back.
I knew one, I wasn't gonna go back out on the streets again. You know, I'd come hell or high water.
So
No, I
time
was
out.
gonna
Let me
finish
time
it.
out. Like, what is it like? Is that something you kind of briefly mentioned? What's it like? You know, I mean, you've been through some tough stuff, but kind of homeless in a big city wasn't something you had been through. So, what was that like? Just being out on the street, having to get a payphone, not knowing where the heck you were going.
Probably the most scared I've ever been. Knowing that I didn't have money just to get a snack from the gas station. No way of getting in touch with you or my family. No place to stay. You know, 'cause I didn't have the money for that. You know, I did sit on the side of the road and, you know, eventually, you know, made some money flying a sign. And was able to come up with some money to give you guys a call, obviously from a payphone. But I think that was probably the lowest I'd ever been. You know, I thought jail, like going to jail would probably be, you know, my bottom, but it actually took me being
Yeah.
homeless.
Yeah, if you saw the video, that wasn't just a random payphone we went to. We got the footage of the actual payphone, the
Yeah.
payphone, there around
The
Green
golden
Springs, the
payphone.
Shell, at the Shell. So yeah, then you get, we kind of talked about that. You get back to the foundry, and you really don't look back. So what happened there?
Well, before, I just remember just praying, like, God, I need this second chance. You know, I continue to do this on my own and keep messing this up. You know, I can't do this, you know, without you. And I really just thought about that. You know, the first month or two, it was just kind of a relief being back in, just trying to get back into the swing of things at the foundry and getting used to it. And then after that, you know, I just really began to just dig deep and put myself around the right guys this time and just really get involved and just do a lot of soul searching and just build that relationship with Jesus Christ. And man, I haven't looked back since. You know, it's like everything in me changed. You know, I just lost all desire just to go out and get messed up or get high. You know, it was a 180.
So what would you say, you know, to people like, because I think, you know, sure, there's a lot of people out there that have gotten sober and clean apart from Christ. You know, I mean,
Yep.
that happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it not possible. But from what I've seen in people, it sure makes things a whole lot better.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and easier. And
it's
so I
reason.
talk about that, like your relationship with Christ, because I remember going out. I think we went out there one. I can't remember how it happened. It was either on the phone or we went out there to visit, and I remember you saying something to the effect of like, "Hey, I just got serious about my relationship with Christ." You know, it was a church service or something, and I really, it was and I really feel like things have changed there. I mean, I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but I remember there's a distinct moment where you said, like, you referenced your relationship with Christ, and things are different now.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about that a little bit, like, and what impact that, like, how did that make such an impact in your life where trying to kind of white knuckle it on your own, just sober up, like, didn't work?
I think it was just there was a church in Lipscomb, which, you know, I ended up staying in a house next to, you know, this church, you know, after I left the foundry. But it was some guys from Christ City Church, and actually one of them is still my roommate to this day. But there were 4 guys living in a house next to Christ City Church, and they began to bring us over there on Tuesday nights for community groups. And, you know, they just really started pouring into me and everybody there. But, you know, I just felt that love, like the love of God, you know, just pouring through them. And it's like they took time out of their day just to see how I was doing, just sit down and just really talk about life. You know, not anything in particular, but just to see how I was doing. And just to feel loved again, just feel like I had, you know, that family feel, and just knowing that, you know, seeing what God had done in their lives for them, you know, I wanted that again, you know, and there was a point in time where I did, you know, have that relationship, and, you know, when I was out there doing what I was doing, you know, that went, you know, out the door. So to kind of be reintroduced to that, and just see everything fresh, like from a fresh perspective again, especially through these guys, it definitely played a huge part.
So I got, I mean, one or two more questions is like, I mean, there's a lot of folks out there struggling, right? You know, with drug addiction, and things seem pretty hopeless. So if you were talking to somebody right now that was in the throes of it, you know, and think back a couple years ago where you were at back in Jackson or back on the street here in Birmingham, you know, like what would you, like if somebody said, man, this just looks hopeless, this isn't worth it, you know, or like this is just who I am, this is what I'm going to be, you know, what all those thoughts that you've had.
Yeah.
Like what would you say to that person?
First, I'd say, hey, you know, I get it, man. Me too. I've been there. But it's not over. There's always hope. And that's just one thing you got to hold on to. You know, no matter how far down you've gone, no matter how much you hate yourself, you know, no matter how many people you feel like you've hurt, you know, there's always somebody out there who cares. Whether you know them or not, they love you. And, you know, for me, that was my mom. And if it wasn't for her holding on to every last little bit of me that she could hold on to, you know, I probably would be sitting here talking to you guys. But, you know, it's hard work. It's not easy. It took a while to get where you are. And I get that. You know, it took me 8 years to get to that point. And it's not just going to change overnight. But you have to want it. And you have to be willing to put in the work. And, you know, push through a lot of things. And, you know, see where I would say cravings, I guess the choices that you're making, which obviously aren't that good right now, you know, figure out why you're in the place you're at, what got you there, you know, what can you change about yourself, and also, you know, look to God. You know, He may not always answer your prayer right off the bat. You know, it just takes time. You know, for me, I didn't just pray a prayer and everything just changed. You know, it took me, you know, getting in the Word every day and just having that constant contact with Him. And you know, things will change. Again, they're not going to change probably as quick as you want. But you know, once you begin to love yourself, then you know, God's going to place those people in your life that are really going to reach out to you. But you have to be willing, you know, to put your pride aside and you know, let that, you know, take its course.
Mm-hmm. So two things that kind of stand out to me that I think is good for people on the other side of things that haven't dealt with that to hear is, number one, you know, go back to what you said the first of that video is, you know, I didn't just wake up, you know, one day and decide I wanted to be addicted to heroin. No one does. It takes time. And so if it's a journey to get to that point, it's going to be a journey out of that point. Yeah. You know what I mean? So for people to think, oh, well, they're just going to snap out of it one day. It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to change overnight. Like, it's going to be a journey, but you got to keep putting in the work. And then another thing, I mean, that you referenced as a big part of your recovery and getting serious about it was a group of godly, like Christian guys surrounding you in the community. And so, you know, with everything that comes with addiction, forces you to isolation. I mean, it seems like you got to work pretty hard, but then put yourself around people.
The right.
And so, so I think that, like, would you say? I think that would be an encouragement to people that haven't struggled with it to say, you know, it's not just about shipping somebody to a recovery program. There's good recovery programs. Founder's a great place. Yeah. You know, there's other good recovery programs around, and they're great. But it's not like, hey, go to rehab and then everything just is better. And I think the call for a lot of people is we got to be willing as the church and as believers to rally around people that are struggling and be those guys that were in your life to surround people. And so people say, well, what can we do? How do we help? And it seems like it doesn't take, it's not a rocket science. No. But it's be willing to be people's friends and care about them and have a real relationship with them.
Just be willing to love on somebody you don't know and just be there for them through their pain and their hurt and their rough time. And, you know, it'll go a long way. It'll mean a lot more to them than you think.
So Jim and Rachel are in the room. I know y'all haven't haven't seen them. Anything we think needs to be asked, we missed? Kind of putting you on the spot. Anything you want to say?
I think we've covered
You
it.
covered it. If anybody's got a question before we wrap it up, type quick and knock one out. So
I would say something, which I don't know if I've talked about this, but a question I was thinking of is making a big move soon, obviously up north. And so I don't know if that like is like weighs heavy on you, or if you think about like this is where you got clean, so it has kind of maybe become like a safer place.
Yeah.
And like, are there routines, are there practices, or is it just a mindset that you take with you to carry on like how well you've done here and how well the Lord's like taking you up there?
I think it's just a mindset.
let me hang on. I don't know if people could hear that.
Oh,
I'm not sure. So Rachel asked. First, we got to give some context. Wilkes is moving, and here soon to where?
Boston, Massachusetts.
So big move from small town to a little bit bigger town to now even bigger. And so Rachel was just asking, like, Birmingham's been a good place to him and to you, and getting into some healthy rhythms and routines. So what do you carry up there? Am I asking this right? Then people might have heard. I just don't know. So what do you carry up there to kind of keep moving?
First of all, I'll say I will miss the South. You know, Southern born, Southern bred. It's really just holding tight to those practices and the beliefs. Of placing yourself around people who will hold you accountable. Staying away, obviously, from certain people that you feel may be bad influences or could be a threat to your sobriety. It's not, again, like you said, rocket science. Just don't put yourself in bad situations or in places that you would be at risk to relapse or get back to a bad place. And again, get rooted in a church, and just have that community that all of us need, addicts or not. But yeah, that's really all it is.
Cool. Everybody good? All right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If there's anybody you think like could benefit from hearing Wilkes' story, this video will stay up on our Facebook page, so point them to it. If you haven't seen the video we talked about, urbanpurpose.org, you can get to it from there. Just click on the banner about second chances, or you can go straight to urbanpurpose.org/chances and see the video. Wilkes and a young guy named Andrew share a bit of their story of getting multiple chances, and that's really for us just kind of what the Lord's pressed on us over the years is it didn't get bad overnight, and it's not going to get better overnight, and so just giving somebody one shot doesn't really make a lot of sense, because then we're just kind of, what the heck are we doing? Because we really wouldn't have that many people to if we just gave one shot, we wouldn't really have that many people to impact.
There'd be no success story.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody that's really going to just get it on the first go.
Right.
A lot of times, even the second go. So, that's what the God's pressed on us is to, we talked about it. You might not like what you hear when you come back around, and you might get some ramped up accountability, or things have to go a certain way, or we have to change. It's not just getting trampled over and enabling.
Yeah.
But if somebody's willing to come back and say, I want to get this right, I mean, we don't have a choice, right? Like we don't have a choice because of the gospel. To not give someone another chance, because really, I think for us, like what we know is, what you struggled with and what you were going through and your sin and all that stuff is destructive and out there for everybody to see, just a gigantic mess.
Yep.
But it's not. I'm not better. Jim's not better. Rachel, none of us are better. And our sin is just nice, neat, tidy. We can tuck it away, and it's not as destructive. But we need second, third, fourth, fifth chances just like anybody else. And so if God has extended that grace to us, what choice do we have? But if we're going to be Christ-like, then we must do the same. And so that's our calling and what we feel passionate about. And we're proud of Wilkes and thankful that God saw fit to orchestrate all the pieces to move him down here. And I'm going to miss him moving up north. But we know God's got some good stuff for them. So, anyways, appreciate y'all tuning in, and we're gonna sign off. And so we appreciate everybody.